This is the Program and Policy Committee meeting of Wednesday, February the 23rd, 2022 at 5:30 p.m. And we are in the Samuel A. Meyer Boardroom located at the Alpha Lee West Building, room 105 in the Sport McIntosh campus here at West End Washington Street in Laredo. This meeting is called to order and I will do the roll call. Jackie Levin Ramos, Chair present. Dr. Henry Carranza, co-chair. Karina Elizondo has advised that she will be unable to make it to this meeting. Ms. Cynthia Mares.
Present.
We do have the majority of our members are here. So we will continue with the meeting as has been posted. Dr. Tijerina is present and so is Dr. Arezola. And we have Mr. Garcia representing our college attorney, Mr. Vela, and Dr. Fred Solis. Pardon me, I have a little bit of a temporary amnesia, so if I forget somebody's name, it's just that I've been away for quite some time from the college. So I have a little bit of temporary amnesia, so I'm like trying to figure out what's going on. We don't have water in our school, so we don't go to school. So I'm trying to just get myself back in place. So pardon me. And we also have our coaches and Ms. Bocanegra also here present at this meeting. So we're going to go ahead and go to the first one. I was going to ask Dr. Tijerina if we could go to number 4 first and then go to number 3. So if it's okay with everyone, so that way we could go through the other ones really quick and then come back and focus on that one, okay? So number 4 is the TASB Board Policy Update 42, review updated legal policies and act on local policies. There is a list that's located below, and this will be presented by Dr. David Arezola.
Good evening, members of the board. Administration David Arezola, Interim Provost and Vice President for Academic Affairs and Compliance here at the college. We have some policies, some updates for you to review today. As you all know, TASB manages our policy manual. They have been doing so for years. Every 6 months or so, they generate an update on the policy manual. So our policy manual consists of legal policies and local policies, regulations, and exhibits. So what we present to the board, for the most part, is our local policies. Our legal policies are taken strictly from federal or state law. We have no choice. So the bigger book that you see there, we have no choice but to adopt those. In fact, all of those policies are already in our policy manual. They were released in October, placed in our legal policy manual, and already there. The local policies that you have before you is a smaller set of policies, and for the most part, we do, when we get local policies, we'll do one of several things. We'll either take the policies exactly the way TASB recommends it. We'll take what they give us and maybe modify it a little bit, send it back to them. And we'll work with them that way. Sometimes on rare occasion, we'll say, no, we don't want to adopt your version of the local policy. Now, in these about 17 or 18 policies that you see before, we did not make any changes to the way TASB presented them to us. We did review them as a team over a couple of meetings. We reviewed them as a small executive team. We reviewed them as a leadership team and as even some members of the management and the deans. reviewed all the changes that came forward. And we did not disagree with any of these, so we were in agreement with all the changes that TASB recommended. So we don't have a lot to present today other than the policies as they are outlined in your booklets. And if there are any questions or anything that would be up for discussion, we would certainly take some time to do that here.
Do any of the members have any questions? I know they were a little bit lengthy, but they cooperated with what we already had. So I think it's just a matter of reviewing them. I did see most of them, especially the ones that dealt with board members. And then the other ones with facilities and compensation and benefits. So most of the information is in line with what we
Or
already.
minor tweaks, changes to
Wording.
wording, but very minor, not a lot of major changes in this policy,
Thank
in
you.
this policy update.
So if no one has any questions or any comments, we can move to the next item. Thank you, Dr. Arizola.
Well, thank you.
And the board might ask you a couple of questions tomorrow, but it seems that, everything's in order. So
I appreciate that, and we're ready to answer any of the questions.
thank you, sir. Appreciate it. We will now move forward to number 5, approve modifications to Laredo College Board policies, Dr. Marisela Rodriguez Tijerina. 5A, DJ local assignment workload and schedules. 5B, DM, the AA local term contracts, termination and mid-contract. 5C, DM, AB local term contracts, non-renewal. Dr. Tijerina.
Marisela Tijerina for the record. For the 3 policies, it's not changing the content, but changing the title. Instead of Senior Director of Human Resources and Safety, our Senior Director no longer has safety under, from a reorganization that happened a while back. We just haven't updated it, so it's just, and you'll see it there. All we're removing is safety in these 3 board policies, but not necessarily changing any content of those policies.
Does it leave the Human Resources Director to oversee those particular exceptions or anything that's going to be taking place? It's the Director of Human Resources, right?
Right.
Okay. Right. Questions from the committee?
Fine.
No, Dr. Carranza, we're okay? Okay. Thank you, and we'll present those to the board as well, and if they have any questions, they'll be able to ask you. We move on to number 6, discuss modifications to the Laredo College Board Policy, BBH local board members, conventions, conferences, and workshops. And I'm bringing this to the board, to the members of this committee first. I would like to place this item on the board's agenda for the following month. And what this is just adding to those, to that particular policy and stipulating what are the different types of conferences that are available. We noticed in the last year that we've come back and we reviewed some of them based on submissions from the rest of the trustees. So if we were to place the designated conferences that we can go to or that we are supposed to go to, then I think the board can review those and say, you know what, for example, Association of Community College Trustees, they have a conference, they have a legislative summit, they have different conferences available that our board members would definitely get some information from or benefit from. There is the National Legislative Seminar of the ACC team. There is the Association of Governing Boards, which is specific to colleges that are also universities that are 4 years and they serve for bachelor's programs. There's the Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board Conference, which we already go to when we get recently elected. And then there's some conferences that we've been to also as well. The other ones that are available for our trustees is Community College Association of Texas Trustees, the Texas Association of Community Colleges, the National Association of Latino Elected Officials, NALEO, and also the Hispanic Association of Colleges and Universities, which is HACU, and the National Conference of Administrators for Financial Aid, Student Financial Aid and Administrators is a consideration. So what I would like to do is I would like to submit to my members of this committee those different conferences that are available. And for the next meeting that we meet, we can also include, probably if the committee agrees, what are some of the expenses that are allowable because it doesn't stipulate there. So also prepaid expenses, maybe the meals, lodging, the transportation, a little bit more descriptive, because right now, as it seems, it says you may attend regional, state, or national conventions, conferences and workshops, reimbursement for reasonable travel expenses for attendance. It's very vague and it's very, you have to go to that one to say, let me go ahead and get the board's approval. And we had never done that before. And if we go ahead and place these considerations, it might be a little bit different. So I would like to confer also with Dr. Tijerina and review it and maybe put it together based on Mr. Muir's advisement also as well. So if it pleases the committee, we can go ahead and put it on the next agenda for the next board meeting. Is that okay?
Yes, just one question,
Yes.
Madam Chair. Again, and that's a great idea. You list out and it doesn't leave anything to, imagination as to, well, I just want to go to whatever, to Las Vegas, to do whatever. It's very specific because it's all tied around what we do, our responsibilities as trustees, and helping us understand possibly the mechanics of the institution as well, any other area that would be of interest to us. So yes, indeed, that's a good idea. My only point would be, let's say for some reason there's a conference outside the parameters of what we're gonna, does that really restrict us to a certain extent? Because let's say there's something, right now I can't think of it, but for something that is having to do for trustees as well, or college issues, but it's not on the list. What happens then? Do we just have to put an item on the agenda and bring it to the board and say, I'm interested in attending, is not part of that list, but here's the data, here's documentation on what that conference is about, and then let the board decide whether we go
Right.
or not?
And what there would be these items that the board would agree to, if the board agrees, that would not need board approval. So these, in order, they would already be approved by the board. These are the places where we can go to, right? The annual conferences. But we would put a stipulation at the very bottom. If a trustee wishes to attend an event not included in the approved list, the trustee may request authorization from the board. If a trip has not been authorized by this policy, the trustee must submit a request to the board for approval pursuant to this policy. If the board approval is not received prior to the commencement of a trip, the trustee may take the trip and seek reimbursement from the board. Without prior authorization, the college district is under no obligation to pay for the trip or its expenses. So we would put that stipulation, because some things come up. I mean, yes, definitely, there are some other conferences that might come up. Many of these conferences are around the different organizations that we work with. So there could be some other ones. I was able to look at several other policies, and this one, for example, they approved the San Antonio Chamber of Commerce SA to DC. We wouldn't, that would not be feasible for us, right? We've never done it before. But they also approved the Texas Association of School Boards and the Texas Association of Community College Attorneys to have the board members attend these. And that's not for us either, because it's only for the college attorneys and also for the school board members. So there has to be an explanation, because while we are part of the TASB organization, that TASB is actually an organization that works with school boards, not with college boards. And so I would hate to have a repeat again of another situation where we bring it to the board and we have to do some explanation. And it shouldn't be that way, because many of these are the ones that we are directly related to and the college pays for us to be members of. Like the NILEO, we are already members. The majority of the time that they have conferences, we don't pay a single penny because they offer, a scholarship. So whoever wants to go. So, but if it pleases the committee, Chair recognizes Dr. Carranza.
I agree with everything. The major thing here especially for the board members, is to attend some of the seminars, like you were saying. But we also have to look at the budget to fix our budget where we can go in peace not go counting every penny that we're subtracting.
Yes. Yeah.
But no, it's important that we attend some, at least every board member should attend at least one or two a year.
Mhm.
Why? Because you're gonna learn what's going on outside of Laredo. It might not fit in Laredo, but who knows, you might get one or two ideas that you can put in here and it will work for our population. So no, I'm for it. I've been for it for a long time.
Madam Chair.
Yes, recognize Ms. Mattis.
Also, the stipulation at the end, I think is important because, and I know some board members feel that it's a drag. Why should we have to come and ask for approval to go somewhere? But going back and tying it to the budget and tying it really to our fiscal and fiduciary responsibility as trustees, I don't see anything wrong if I come across something and I say, well, input on the agenda.
Mhm.
Obviously, you don't do it in time and you still go. I mean, that's why I like that stipulation because, well, you went on your own, nobody authorized it. It's like anywhere else in any business or any other organization. Unauthorized expenses or actions are not gonna be sanctioned or approved by anyone. So I don't see it as a negative. I think it's a good thing because we've covered ourselves.
Mhm.
And if anybody has a question or issue like we've seen in the past, well, there it was, and you just didn't clear it with anyone, and I'm sorry.
Yeah.
This one you have to, take out of your own pocket.
Thank you. And I'd also like to set the pace for future trustees that might get elected or they come to the board. That way they know already that that's in place. But, so I will provide you with some information and then you all may check off and, provide that. But tomorrow I will defer that item for another board meeting. Okay, so any other questions, any other comments? Okay, so we go back to number 3 and discuss the analysis of relevant issues pertaining to some of the athletes programs and approve a proposal for the implementation of Laredo College Athletics Program, including a possible reorganization, Laredo College Administration, and I know we didn't place it here, but we do have a presentation from the department, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so before we start, I would like to say that in the last meeting, not the last meeting, but the meeting before, we did speak about having administration look over the various ways that these programs could be either re-implemented or they could be brought back from being postponed for a while. And I do want to say before we begin with any presentation is that among some of the things that I think that we discussed at the time was the recruitment part, the fundraising, the Title IX, the plan of action, and most importantly, the student success. So those are some of the topics that I feel as the chair of the Program and Policy Committee that we need to address within the proposal or continue to work on the proposal if it's missing any of these items. And so, and mostly addressing also the local students as well. So I defer to you and then we can go ahead and ask them to make the presentation.
Thank you. Marisela Tijerina for the record. The way the agenda item is written is the way the motion was made on December 7th of 2021. And the sum of the athletics program aligns with the option 2 proposal that we made as far as the board workshop back in November. And so by implementing some of the athletics program, and when we say some, we're referring to the 2 tennis, female, male, soccer, and softball. That was the proposal of option 2 by bringing partial athletics back. And this item was both last night in the finance committee as well as in the policy. And the reason we felt it was important to place it on both is because by placing athletics back, we have to remember that our current budgets do not have allocations for the specific sports other than the salaries. So it was important last night to demonstrate the financial impact this was going to cause on the GO as well as the student activity fee and which programs were going to be, I don't want to say necessarily completely eliminated, but will have to go through some budget shortfalls. And then the other part is for today, the implementation, once we get athletics back, we all recognize there's certain areas that need vast improvement, which is student success rates, graduation rates here locally at the college, fundraising, so eventually athletics could be able to sustain itself. We also have to, like we mentioned yesterday, although we're hopeful that enrollment will continue to rise, we also have to recognize that this year we had the CARES, HERF funding, and that we used up about $7.2 million or so. I don't have the exact figures with me to make up the enrollment numbers. And so next year, as we move on, there will be no HERF. There will be, and the student, what makes athletics tricky in the budgets is particularly the student activity, is that is strictly based on traditional enrollment. And so those numbers impact the fee that's going to be collected. So we reiterated that, and just a reminder of, how enrollment does impact those numbers. We're going to show a little bit of the financial. So Dr. Arresola will first give a glimpse of that, so that way you can see what programs are going to be affected due to bringing in some of the sports back, and then the coaches will follow up with the implementation plan that they have worked on.
Thank you. Dr. Arresola? And Mr. Bennett, right?
It's Dr. Arresola and Mr. Bennett.
Members of the board, David Arresola, interim provost, vice president for academic affairs and compliance for the record. Again, one of the things that we did over the last, especially a little bit more over the last month, is we did meet with the coaches in our athletics programs and amongst ourselves to make sure that while we were bringing back these programs, that there were going to be some sacrifices made both by our programs and by theirs, right? So I'll have Mr. Rella explain the money. He does a little bit better job of that than
Good evening, Cesar Vela, VP of Finance for the record. As Dr. Arresola mentioned, we've had a couple of meetings internally with administration and also with the coaches to go over the budgets that we would need to bring back the four sports, both the men's and women's tennis, soccer, and softball. And you'll see here on the slide the numbers. Pre-COVID, which was our budget for 2020, that's when we had the athletic program. We had all the sports, including the sports complex and the central account for athletics. Those budgets were $1,447,146, and that was again to operate the athletic program with all the sports. Again, well, we held a series of meetings with the coaches, and we went through the numbers, and we agreed that to bring back those four sports, it would take around $765,000 to do that. Now, obviously, that would come with some restrictions. And some of the items that we discussed, obviously, were the scholarships. That was one item of discussion. And again, when we looked at the different line items, we identified a line item, which was the insurance line item for the athletic programs. Originally, we had budgeted 120, but we were taking into account the number that we had coming from 2020, which included all the athletic sports. When we went back and revisited that figure, we got a proposal for 30,000. So that freed up 90,000 of those 120. So a decision was made. Okay, well, can we use that for scholarships? And certainly that's an allocation, again, when we had that discussion with the coaches, that they would be able to work their line item or their budgets as long as they stay within the 765. Now, obviously, like we mentioned, it is with restrictions. So the discussion that revolved around the scholarships is that the allocation for scholarship would be for local athletes. Anything, if they want to recruit international students and offer scholarships, then that's where the fundraising activities would come in. So that is part again of the compromise or the talks that we had to be able to make the budget work. Now, along that, again, there are sacrifices that are being made both by the athletic programs, but also in the student activities fund budgets, and also on the geo side. But again, I'll go ahead and defer that to Dr. Arresola, who has part of that presentation, so he can show where some of the impacts or some of the adjustments that will need to be made in order to make the budget work.
Mr. Vela, before Dr. Arresola speaks, can we go back to this line item where it says athletics? It says 2020, you had a 243,000, and then in 2023, it went up to 284. But you reduced the rest of the tennis and the soccer and the softball. They were reduced because of the scholarships. That's one of the reasons why?
Yes, I apologize. I forgot to mention that. Right now, we're centralizing the scholarship component under the athletic program,
Okay.
and then the coaches will work amongst themselves in the allocation of how those scholarships will be distributed.
Are they going to be distributed evenly, or you said that you're working with $90,000 for local athletes only?
Yes, and so if we were to do an even distribution, we will be looking at about 30,000 per
Per sport,
Yes, and
But
again,
30,000 per sport,
well,
but
30 for tennis, 30 for, again, I know that tennis has women's and ten,
That's
and
what I was
men's,
gonna
but
say.
it would be by sport. Again, that is a discussion that, when we finalize the budget, that's something that's gonna be discussed again by the coaches. That budget will be worked, with the assistance of the coaches, again, with the understanding that the number that we have to work with is the 765. Now, that includes salaries, includes the travel allocation, obviously some line items for their uniforms, including also, like we mentioned, the insurance cost, which is also part of the 284. And we do have a component there for the bus, for the maintenance of the bus and the insurance of the bus. Again, but as far as the line items, they'll have to work with the allocations. And again, that's the allocation of scholarship will be done amongst the coaches when they work out their budgets.
And I would caution, and I'm gonna direct myself to the coaches. If you have $90,000 and you're dividing them by 3, or you're gonna get 30,000 each, then actually the women's is gonna get 15,000. Right, correct? Right, Coach Don Juan? And the men's and women's.
Yeah.
I really think that you all should think about that, because it has to be equal to all the sports. So it would be 90 divided by 4, so that each separate sport would get, in other words, the scholarships are not going to the coach itself who is doing the training or coaching, but it's going to the sport itself.
Yeah, and that's why
That's
right
something
now
that
it's
they
being
want.
centralized,
Mhm.
because those are the items that we need to look at.
Yeah.
Again, we need to make sure that the distribution is fair amongst the different.
For the different sports, right? Because if you say tennis, but if there's 2 separate sports in the tennis.
Yes.
It's
the
men's and
women's
men's.
yes.
Yeah, so,
Yes,
okay.
understood.
thank you, Mr. Vela.
Ms. Owens? One of the reasons that we did centralize is to allow for some flexibility in how we would distribute that, not necessarily per sport, but per proportion, as far
Okay,
as.
okay, sounds better.
males to
Yeah.
females. So.
That sounds better than dividing it.
Right, evenly, right.
Chair
So-
recognizes Dr. Carranza.
I'd like to follow up on Dr. Tejerina. I have to look at everything that's going on outside of the college. Where is the money coming from? From taxes. Right now, Laredo is going through an economic crisis. Our student enrollment might be low. Why? Because a lot of the students here on community colleges are older, mostly, basically. and they all work. They all work. And if, the economy keeps going the way it is, I look at these figures here, and I'm all for sports, because I play most of the sports that are here. Well, I play them all. But the thing is, the money, and also we have to think of our faculty. We don't want to lose faculty because we want to bring in sports at this point. Because once I look at that budget, this little budget is, these are figures that I've seen over and over. But the real budget, how much is it going to be? The bottom line, that's why I always say, give me the big figure, don't give me the little numbers, because I don't look at all these little things. I look at, are we gonna stay in the red? Or are we gonna go stay in the black?
So right now, if we make the assumption that our budget is gonna stay at 61 million, then, as we mentioned, some adjustments are gonna have to be made. And both on the student activity side and on the general operating side. Out of the 765,000, approximately 324,000 is coming from student activities. And that's the one right now, as Dr. Cleveland mentioned earlier, that we need to take a look at, because both soccer and softball are getting paid from that fee. And right now, only the non-dual student pays the fee. So it's important that the enrollment is there to generate the revenue. On the geo side, again, that's where the $61 million budget is. But all the funds are already allocated, so we'll have to make adjustments. We're looking at approximately 440,000 that will be from the geo side. Now, we do have to make this statement, when we look at student activities, right now, the budget or the revenue that's coming in for student activities is approximately $1 million from the fee. That's the amount that's being generated a year. So if we take 324 for soccer and softball, that leaves about 675,000 for student activities. So some cuts are gonna have to be made in student activities. Now, looking at the line items, the biggest line item in student activities is salaries, like any of our other budgets. So we most likely are gonna have to transfer some positions over from student activities over to geo. We have identified around 251,000 that needs to be moved over. What does that mean? That the total impact from geo is not just 440, it'll probably, now we have got the 251 into the geo. So that's the total impact that geo is gonna have. Now, how do we do that? Well, some of the discussions we've had is, we have some vacancies that we've frozen for some years to balance the budget. Well, we're no longer gonna be able to freeze the position, we're gonna have to eliminate them. So at this point, we're gonna have to look at eliminating vacancies that may be there in the instructional division. So we may have some faculty positions that we may not be able to fill now, because we are gonna have to eliminate those positions. Again, that's what the impact would be. Again, it would be the 440 that is coming to geo, plus the transfer of some positions from student activities over to geo to be able to make the budget work.
Without, before I call on you, Dr. Carranza, just give me a minute. With all due respect, it seems as if we're forcing something that we don't have the money for. I mean, we're gonna go from point A to point B to get to point C. And we're gonna remove some positions from the student activity and put them in the general operating fund and add more to the general operating fund. Where were those monies being allocated for before? So, but we're forcing something that is like, it's a circle, you know? So just something to think about. We can hold off on, what we wanna respond right now, right? Because we're looking at all, it's a circle, right? But I wanna ask Dr. Carranza, recognize him to make any comments that he
Well, the
wishes
comment I
to.
was gonna make is that our college relies a lot on government grants. Am I right? That we rely on government grants. And right now, if you keep up with the world, what's going on around the world, there's a big thing happening across like the ocean, one of the oceans, that this could hurt our grants. So there's another thing that you have to look now. Now, we have to look, I hate to be the guy of bad news, all right, but we have to face reality. In the long run, we know how many students are gonna enroll. I look at the college, somebody mentioned a Ghost College, hell, we're pretty close to a Ghost College now. And, also online, we're losing a lot of students online. Now, the high schools are pushing for the college programs. So that a lot of them will not be coming here. A lot of them will be going basically maybe to TMU or out of Laredo, if the money still holds out in Laredo. But we have to be very careful in how we spend our money to keep our college going. You know, I love sports, but sometimes you have to say to yourself, you have to wager the both sides. That's why the lady is blind, because she doesn't want to look at what side to look at. So right now, what you're presenting to us, they are good figures, but can we sustain them and without going into a crash?
Well, like we discussed yesterday at the finance and audit committee, this is something that we're gonna unfortunately have to look at again next year, because again, we're tied to enrollment
Yeah.
to some extent. So if the enrollment is not there, we're gonna wind up with the situation next year. Again, when we look at athletics, and actually our budget in general, right? So again, the task was, okay, present a plan. We work with the coaches to try to see how we could make it work to reinstate the athletic programs. Again, this is one of the recommendations that we have, but yes, it will pose some challenges. And like I said, there is an impact, especially when we're looking at, as you mentioned, Dr. Carranza, that right now we really don't know. The economy is unstable right now. Gas prices are going up, inflation, we have shortages of materials. So, and then obviously the big unknown of enrollment, right? And how is that going to turn out once we don't have those incentives that we're offering? Because right now, we also need to take into account, as Dr. Guillen mentioned, we have relied on the curve funding to make up some of that shortfall. That's not going to be there next year. So how is that impact going to be on the overall budget? So, yeah.
Ms. Myers, do you have anything to add?
I'm listening to her and I totally agree. And this is something that I really wanted way back. And I think I've said this several times without being too redundant, but I wanted to see this. I'm a visual person. I wanted to see this in the black and whites. And I know about the finances, so I totally understand. But, I just wanted to give it one last look and say, here are the numbers, the actual numbers, and we're talking about the impacts that are going to be, felt, across the board of certain things. I would like to reserve some more of my comments until I see the plan that athletic has, and then put them side by side, with our numbers and our forecast, that it's a cloudy forecast for the future, in the least. And then put it on that right next to it, put their plan and see if we can make it work, I'd like to just reserve that.
And I would caution that, going forward and making a plan, we have to be very careful. Because if we do bring back students to participate in our sports, they are wanting to stay for the 2 years. And if we are going to bring it back for a year, review it again the following year, and then there's always be instability. And so there's never going to be that that the student can be able to look forward to staying the 2 years like they were before. And I understand things have changed dramatically for many of us. Life was not the same as it was 2 years ago or even a year and a half ago. But we also need to remind ourselves that with student success comes with that responsibility that we need to make sure that we're going to be in it for, like you say, to win it, right? To stay here. And I personally don't want to see us forcing anything that we know is not going to be beneficial to our students. So just keep that in mind and just, those are some of the thoughts. And I understand my perspective is as a trustee, but you all know that as a trustee and the rest of the trustees here, we delve into, the ins and outs and we have a responsibility too as well. So I don't want you to ever think that it's like us against you all or you all against us. It's not that. We have to look at the whole picture too. So we just need to work, as a team, because it is a team effort. And I see that here. I see everybody's putting their part, and we're gonna hear a presentation also as well. And I look forward to having you all present that presentation to the rest of the board members who are not part of this committee, right? And who are not part of the business committee. So with that, we'll continue to have those discussions. And I know Dr. Adesola, you were gonna add something else before we ask the coaches to make the presentation. Dr. Carranza? Okay.
So when we presented some of the options for athletics in November, December, these are some of the proposed innovations that we had discussed, and I present these to more than anything to show the mutual kind of compromise that we reached in putting together a plan for bringing back athletics, right? Now, that's not to say that these programs are no longer on the table. It'll just mean that they're going to take longer to develop, because we'll have to spread it out over multiple budgets over multiple years. So some of these will still happen, but just not as fast as we wanted them to, and perhaps not even as as robust as we wanted them to. So we also, in putting together our plan, did have to make some cuts to some of our current budgets, right? So these are some of the budgets that have either been reduced or eliminated altogether. Campus recreation, we reduced money for funds. Graduation activities, can't reduce too much, but we'll have to move that to the GO. Same thing with some of the student activities. Reduce our professional development out of that fund. Some of the money that we had allotted for student leadership awards, student leadership type of activities. And as Mr. Vela said earlier, some of the student activity support staff will move to the GO. We have decided to eliminate the wellness program. We're going to eliminate any of the several vacancies to make up for some of the budget that we had to move over, and perhaps even reduce some of the contracted services agreements that we have. So again, it was it's going to take a little bit of a sacrifice to make this happen, and we're going to indeed make it happen.
Dr. Adesola, is the ASO going to be impacted?
They're part of the clubs. Now, the way, and Dr. Frederick, correct me if I explain this wrong, but the way we have money set aside for the clubs is we have startup money, right?
Mhm.
So there's, if somebody wants to establish a club, we give them
Right.
money to start up, and then they have to kind of self-sustain from there on after. But I don't know if that answers the question.
Dr. Solis?
For the record, Fred Solis, Vice President for Student Success and Enrollment. The answer to your question is ASO has its own allocation,
Mhm.
which, based on the plan that we have right now, will not be directly impacted.
Okay.
But again, it's all contingent on how well that budget develops with our enrollment.
And also the other clubs, I know you form the clubs on a yearly basis based on the interest from the individuals that are attending. But right now, there's not that many kids attending, so I don't see the formation of different clubs, because what you might have a club for this year, you might not have it the following year if they left. The students went on to the university or they finished their studies here. So, and as far as the graduation activities, what were some of the graduation activities that we are going to be?
The graduation activity line item consists of two major components. One is the cap and gowns that is given to the students because they pay it as part of a general fee already.
Mhm.
And the second is the cost of the ceremony itself. rental of the arena, or if it's an outdoor, the rental of the.
So does that mean we no longer can rent the arena?
No, what it means is that the cost will not be borne by the student activity budget, it'll be borne by the GO, the institutional budget.
Would there be an opportunity for consideration to begin charging for graduation like they do at other colleges and universities? So that it will cover the majority of that, that expense?
The cap and gown and, the cap and gown expense is paid for when the student pays into the general fee. So it's part of one fee, but it's used for multiple things, which is how the activity fee comes about as well.
Mhm.
So we used to require a separate cost for the cap and gown rental or purchase. But it got to the point where students were not following through and purchasing it and or doing the first part, which is really applying for graduation because there was a fee associated with that. So rather than nickel and diming the student every time they were gonna graduate, they just pay it upfront as part of their tuition.
But right now, right now, the way it stands is as a general use fee, I pay for it and then I don't graduate.
That is correct. If you don't graduate, you don't collect your cap and gown. We don't order your cap and gown.
But I already paid for it.
Right.
I think that
Mhm.
there's a lot of kids out there that they just don't reap the benefits,
Right,
Yeah.
right.
so.
But the fee is not necessarily designated only for cap and gowns. That's why it's part of a larger budget and a sub-element of that budget goes to the cap and gown cost.
Maybe we can look into just reviewing it a little bit, because every college, they collect a graduation fee.
Yeah, and some of those arrangements are worked out through the bookstore. The student is forced to go to the bookstore, place your order, they get measured there and so on. And that's how then the student knows that they're making the effort to get their own cap and gown and paying for it out of their own pocket.
Right. Dr. Carranza had a comment.
Are you finished? sir?
Yes,
I mean, I don't. Well, what I was gonna say is, we're the number one college, 2-year college in the state. And why are we there? We're there because we have a good administration, and this is what we rely on, what you bring forward here when you stand here and you talk, because there are a lot of things that I can't cover out there, because I work, a lot of us work. So we have to, the board has to rely on what you bring forward. And so far, you've been doing your job, and I know it's been hard because we have a pandemic, we have now we have crisis here in the city, we have crisis out there in the world. So you, as the administrators, are looking at it, and what you presented today, it's feasible, it's workable, but there's some things that they might not work at all. And right now, I think that what happened, the monies that were used for sports were used to bring up other programs that we needed to bring up, and also to bring up some raises, some salary raises. I think some of it fell in there, but now the sports wants to come back. Can we handle it this year, or in 2 years, or in another year? Because the way it was said right now is very iffy. We're in that fine line, that yes, we might pull it off, maybe 2 teams, maybe. Well, the maybe is gonna be okay at the beginning, but then the maybe ends at the end. The bottom line is, can we carry it out as a college, as a team? Because as far as I'm concerned, I think you all are doing a good job, and it's not your fault that we fell into this pit with sports. But not all colleges have sports, I hate to say that, not all 2-year programs have sports. We put it in there as a means for the students to have something to do, but yet our student body has not supported our sports. They support maybe soccer a little, because I've been to all these games, and I saw the attendance. So we don't get a profit. I don't think, who keeps track? We don't get a profit from the sports. Maybe a little bit from soccer, because a lot of young people will watch soccer. But right now, we're in the crisis of, do we bring them back or don't bring them back? That is the bottom line. Can we survive if we bring them back? No matter what we say here. That's the bottom line. That's when you go back to the drawing board and say, okay, can we make it? Can Dr. Carranza, is he saying, is he talking just on the horn, or is he just talking for talking? You know? No, that's it. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Dr. Arizona, anything else?
That's it for me. Thank you.
So we ask our coaches to come forward, and I know you have a presentation, correct, Dr. Coach Don Juan is like, I don't know why you present, but you should. I think you should. It's really important to complete the cycle that we set forth out with, so everybody has their own perspective, so. So I will have all three of you introduce yourselves for the record, please.
Good evening, board members, administration, faculty, well, I don't know faculty, but friends. My name is Jaime Don Juan.
Christy Lansford.
Thank you.
And today we're here to speak about athletics. In today's, we will talk about soccer, softball, and men's and women's tennis. Okay. So we have three coaches as we have identified each other. We have been here during the pandemic and before, and hopefully we're moving forward. The strength of athletics. The only community college within 150-mile radius of Laredo able to provide opportunity for local athletes to prepare academically and athletically for transfer to a four-year institution. High transfer and participation rate to the four-year level. Opportunity to gain playing and college athletic experience, internship for future employment and community use engagement, coaches and teachers. Experience and reputable coaches. Athletes want to play for them. Opportunity for local students to compete in front of their hometown crowd. Let me just explain a little bit on the, should I say, on the internship. We and also Tammy, of course, we are the base right here. We grab the students, we produce the students, and most of the athletes that do participate in athletics go ahead and they follow that career. They're coaches. We have turned in a lot of coaches within the years, especially myself since I've been here, the longest. And that, right now I have Roxanne that is at UISD as an assistant athletic director. Just to one.
Ms. Robledo?
Excuse me?
Ms. Robledo?
Yes, correct.
Yes.
I apologize. And we are in our short time, we already have 6 locals back coaching in the community.
Okay.
And in my case, I have 2 already. One of them it's an assistant coach in NCAA Division II in Virginia, and another one it's in a professional team, LAFC over there in Los Angeles.
But these individuals have played with you, right? And they were pursuing the studies in coaching or whatever studies it was, right? Correct? Okay. Kinesiology, yeah.
Correct, in the education field.
Yes.
Student success strategies starts with the coach. Create and monitor an academic success plan for all student athletes. Distribute and collect progress reports 3 times per semester. Initiate and maintain contact as necessary to create and monitor individual academic plans based on faculty recommendations for success in specific classes. Coordinate and monitor study hours and tutoring assignments with the Learning Center staff. Coordinate peer teammate tutoring and increase the graduation rate by 2025. Recruiting goals and strategy. Goals: recruiting for 50% local athletes and increase annually. Recruit 1 athlete from each Laredo high school. Schedule more home competitions to increase fan engagement, local recruit interest and visibility. Strategies: attend local high school competition and practices.
maintain established communication with local high school coaches, host tryouts, camps, and clinics for local athletes, attend recruiting camps and clinics in the surrounding areas which host local and surrounding area athletes. Fundraising goals and strategies. Raise 10,000 per sport annually, conduct one combined sport fundraising event, casino night, community barbecue, identify and secure corporate sponsorships. Strategies, self-fence, sign, websites, social media, game streaming, advertising, conduct e-fundraising campaigns, establish a Palomino Club, Booster Club, offer camps and clinics, sell athletic merchandise, such as t-shirts.
The chair recognizes Ms. Mares.
Oh, Coach, no, in terms of your fundraising, I mean, is this going to be your proposal? Is this the three of you individually and at certain times, do this? Or is there something in the plan that someone else within the structure of LC or will be given that responsibility?
No, for right now, maybe in the future, but for right now, the coaches will be looking for the sponsorships.
And I think your marketing is very essential because, and I think you have to draw the people here so that your sponsors can say, yeah, sure, I'll sponsor your next, tournament or whatever. Here's $25,000, which will go a long way, I'm sure. So yeah, it has to be well orchestrated, obviously, and making sure that you zero in and that these sponsors keep coming back because they see the value for their dollar. And obviously, if we don't have as Dr. Carranza was alluding earlier, some of these games, we didn't have local sponsorship, presence. As much as, and I'm sorry, because over the years, first of all, we only had baseball. And I thought that was the strongest sport here in Laredo because we've got kids since, 3 years old playing, Little League and all of that. But it was sad to see that, not even the parents of the players were, out here as well. And so that's gotta be, that's like a missing link right there. And I know we're not gonna have the answers tonight or in the future, but it always, bothered me as to the people in the community keep saying, you need to have local kids playing. You need to get our local kids to participate in the sports and all that, because we need that. And they go and support them in high school, but then sometimes once they cross over that bridge, it's like, where's the family? Where's the friends, the parents, supporting these kids? So that's something, and I'm sorry, I'm going off on another tangent. It's about support.
And you're correct, I can attest for that. As a parent, I can say sometimes we want to give our sons or daughters a little freedom. But of course, with that freedom, you have those home matches and you do want to go see your son because you can't go out of town. But it's, it works both ways.
Chair recognizes Dr. Carranza.
I understand your fundraising, but just like Ms. Maris way over there said, it's not an easy thing. And we work with projects and granting money for our fundraiser for our organizations. And to get $10,000 for annually, it's kind of hard. And right now, if you attend some of these events, a lot of people are not going. Yes, I'm glad that you all returned back to coach. I was here, I didn't return back to San Antonio. I did return to be an instructor with it for a while. But I also know what it is to be a coach. I coach Little League, Home League, and all that. And I coach female. I started a co-ed female here in Laredo, the softball co-ed team. So I'm very familiar with sports. The thing is that I know that it doesn't attract that much. Here, like with a 2-year school programs, like your type of teams, you might get 2 or 3 good players, and by next year they're not there anymore. They're gone. So where you school. So you are where you started again. You cannot build. It's very hard. I think only in the 1990s, I don't remember, was it the 90s? That we had a strong baseball team. And even then, we didn't attract crowds. The only time we attracted a crowd was when we had the basketball team. They used to fill up the gym. That's the only time. I've been here for over 40 years, so if you wanna compare notes, I'd be glad to.
I mean,
And if I may, I would like to allow them to continue to finish the presentation and just mention something, again, under your strategies. The Palomino Club, the Booster Clubs work for the high schools, but
They don't work for us.
they don't work for us. Be very careful about that, just maybe there's other venues that you could utilize. The alumni is one of them, and that could work to help you if it goes forward. Okay, just to let you know, but you may continue, sir.
Thank you. Attendance and community engagement strategies. One of the ideas was to have more night games. Invite students, employees, community members to display skills and participate in events. One of my ideas to draw attention was to have the fastest 10 to serve in Laredo. Have a radar out there and, just to see who in Laredo has the fastest serve. I thought that was a neat idea. Everybody would like to brag, that I have the fastest serve. Not me, but them. Longest home run in Laredo, best free kick in Laredo, who can be the loudest employee, website and marquee advertising, social media advertising, invite local youth teams to be honorary teams of the game. Student athletes invite students to upcoming games in class. Partner student athletes with non-student athletes to shadow each other. Pre-game clinics, or also clinics after the game or match. Campus and community charity walkathon and t-shirt giveaway to the loudest fan. Title IX compliance. Maintain and monitor compliance using the flexibility of the good faith history and continuing effort to expand opportunities of the underrepresented sex compliance test option. Men's soccer, 25 to 30 male athletes. Softball, 20 to 26 female athletes. Tennis, 8 male athletes and 10 female athletes. Utilize budgetary adjustments, particularly scholarships, to compensate for participation opportunity, proportionality, the most difficult to achieve, deficiency inherent in most collegiate athletic programs.
These are the ones that, the numbers that you would be recruiting, correct?
These are the numbers we're
So-
trying.
So out of men's soccer, would you say that you would get 15 of those to be local? Because you're in the previous slide, y'all mentioned 50%, right?
Yes,
So-
normally we maintain, in past years, we maintain the 50% of local athletes. Yes, but we can continue with that.
And the rest of the individuals, let's say somebody would not be local, but would come from out of town. It would have to be up to them to pay their way to be a part of the team, in other words, right? Okay,
Correct.
so, but if you had fundraised some monies in the second year, for example, you fundraised in the first year, you can utilize those for recruitment of scholarships for those individuals that are outside of the local area.
Yes,
Okay.
that's correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Dr. Aranza,
I'm
Chair
going to
recognizes.
just go over what men's soccer is well known in Laredo now. It's starting to come out real good. The soccer teams here in Laredo are starting to get strong and starting to compete outside of Laredo. Our softball females have not gotten there yet. I don't know, you coach softball, how many wins do you have now? How many years have you played?
I've been here for 7 years, sir, and
How many victories do you have?
we have the total. I don't have that total off the top of my head. I apologize.
Okay.
But what I
Okay.
will say, sir, is we have increased that number of wins every year.
I'm going to how the city looks at this one.
Mhm.
Tennis is very hard to get tennis players. That's one area that some of the high schools are just starting to, we only have, I think, a few high schools that are playing it, but most of those, tennis players go off out of the hill. And the team that's not here is on some volleyball. The female volleyball teams are very strong here in Laredo. I don't see it here. You know. Compared to softball and volleyball, I would go with volleyball.
But Dr. Carranza, we're focused on the ones that had already been in
I
place.
understand, yeah.
Mhm.
And there was no coach in place
I know, I
when
know,
we,
that- 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 that-
Yeah. Yeah.
But I'm just saying, what, Laredo loses.
yes, no, I understand. Yes,
May I
Yes,
just, just really quickly? So actually softball in Laredo is one of the most popular and growing sports in the nation, nationally and locally. It actually is, and that is, I'm sorry?
The older teams, yes. We used to have
Well,
all sorts of teams.
And it's, I'm sorry, I
I don't
believe
know.
that,
I
what
don't
kind of,
know, I don't know, but we used to have a lot of
I'm sorry.
softball.
that's okay.
Yeah,
That's okay.
It just, I'm sorry, I just, I think it all goes back to what we were talking about. I don't know if you remember when I spoke, when I arrived here, that what I saw is that we need coaches. They need coaches. And so it does take some time, just as our record has improved incredibly.
Mhm.
And we were actually, in 2020, we were 10-2 when the season stopped. We actually had a very good team. And, but it does take some time and it's a cyclic process. So by putting those students, I guess when Coach Salmon referred to the internship, that's kind of my word, is the internship is their playing experience.
Mhm.
And that is what we're trying to do, is raise the level at the youth levels so that it does get better. So but it is a cyclic process, but it does take time.
Mhm.
But, you know, we haven't been here.
Eventually it's gonna come from the high schools.
Well,
Well, the majority of your players are going to be those that participate. But then you might have some people that never play softball and they want to try it in college and they try out and they make it, or they try out for tennis and they make it, or they try out for soccer and they make it. So they don't necessarily have to be involved, because it could be politicized too, right, at the high school levels, and only certain players play and only certain players participate.
well, and the whole, I apologize, and the hope is, or the plan has been, that by the time they do get to high school, and the problem is at the youth level, that they have already been through, they've gotten better coaching at the youth level, so they're better prepared at the high school.
For the next
level.
level.
That's the long term goal.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
So your proposal is to comply with Title IX, to be able to recruit 25 to 30 male athletes for soccer, 20 to 26 female athletes for softball, 8 male athletes and 10 female athletes for tennis, and then use the scholarships and the rest of the monies, accordingly. So we got that out of the way. So you got that check off on the Title IX. Okay, so
Thank you.
proceed.
Actually, that's it.
That's
all
it.
I have, yes.
Okay.
Any more questions?
No?
Okay, so I'm gonna go back and I'm gonna go back to the items that we talked about, and so you can go back towards the different slides, right? So Title IX was completed. You all proposed a plan of action for that. Housing, will the housing be available for students?
Marisa Tijerina, for the record, we have not taken housing into account because that's adding more costs
Okay.
to it. And right now, we have a lot of community members renting some of those facilities.
Mhm.
And so housing would not be an option.
Okay, so when we talk about not having housing here, that's gonna add an extra added responsibility for you all. Because if the student decides to move in close to the college proximity, then that would be okay. But I would ask you all to take into consideration in your plan of action, how you would monitor the actions of the students that are living in apartments by themselves, Many times there were students that, they would come to me and they would ask me, I don't have anywhere to live, right? I cannot live in the housing because the housing is for students that have scholarships, right? And so the parents would call me from San Antonio, and they would say, where do we find an apartment? Where can we find an apartment? And then they would end up moving to some apartments right here on the side. And God knows what they were doing on the weekends when there was no supervision, because, and I understand, they're already in college, but if they're gonna be part of the athletic program, they need to still have that, you know, they need to be, they need to be
Code of
supervised.
conduct,
A
code of
certain-
conduct, and a code of ethics,
Yeah,
code of conduct,
yes.
and a code of ethics.
Not completely, but you, like you
Yeah.
said, they're trying to find themselves to go to college and so forth. But as your team members, it's very important to make sure that you still follow up with them and say, what is it that you need? If you need anything, like, and still be that kind of like parental, you know, individual that's overseeing them, and if there's anything, because they are going to be representing the college. So they're not gonna be your average student that's coming to school here, they're gonna be the student that's representing the college through the athletic program. So that's something that you might wanna write a note to think about. As far as recruitment, you mentioned in one of your slides that you would go to the different high schools, and also there'd be one athlete from each Laredo high school. So 50% of the local athletes would be, so you have 10 high schools. If it's gonna be for soccer, if it's gonna be 15 people, then will we be able to get other people besides one athlete, or it's gonna be more than one?
Yeah.
Is it gonna be more?
We are aiming to have one from each.
Minimum is one, maximum, okay.
Correct.
You might find that the whole entire team from United South gets to come and play with you, all right? Okay, so, schedule more home competitions to increase the fan engagement, local recruit interest and the visibility, and also establish that very important item, communication with the local high school coaches. Because right now, there's a disparity. They just do their job, and I've spoken to baseball, soccer, and I've spoken to different coaches, and they just work for what they're doing at the high school. They're not preparing their teammates or their team members to be ready to go to a university or a college to play. They're not. Each individual member of the team does what they have to do to get to the next level. You know what I mean? So just something to think about, you know, right? Because it's really important to have that communication with them. And they want a communication with you all, except they've never had it or it's been minimal. So just, that's a good item that's there. The other thing is the camps and clinics, awesome idea. That should be happening, that should have been happening a long time. I know soccer was having clinics at one point, right? And I don't know if you had camps and so forth, but the little ones, like you said, the little small kids, they really want that. They want to see you all having those camps and the clinics, and those can serve as part of your fundraising efforts. So they can come back and they can utilize those monies for whatever scholarships that you're going to be using for other members. And then you talked about student success. Can we go back to that item where you were going to check on the 3 times per semester? Okay. Coordinate peer teammate tutoring, and where do we see that? Okay, the progress reports. Okay, so, and the academic success plan. Okay. And making sure that they are attending tutoring, very important. One of the things that I saw with the baseball kids was that they weren't doing the work. Somebody else was doing it. They were paying somebody to do it. Yeah. They were paying somebody to do their assignments. So they weren't going to class sometimes. They would just stay in the housing and then they would just stay there, you know? And so that's what I noticed, that they were playing and they were getting the good grades, but they weren't doing the work. So, but I mean, I'm being honest with you about what I had seen before. So it's really, it's good to see that you're coordinating a peer teammate tutoring and also providing an academic success plan. And that covers the student success. You've done a plan of action, and then your fundraising. You mentioned how you wanted to do some fundraising, and then the recruitment also as well. Okay. As far as what I had mentioned at the beginning of the meeting, it was all covered. Now it goes back to working together with administration and carrying out the proposal, right? So anything else, Coach or Coach Lanza?
Yes, actually, Ms. Thomas, thank you. So thank you so much for mentioning the high school coaching and not preparing them. That's actually been one of I apologize. When I first read that, the first thing I noticed is that they don't know to register with the NCAA clearinghouse, even if they're going to the 2-year level. They're not, you're absolutely correct in that they're not being taught that. And I didn't think about this at the time, but when I first got here, I did a recruiting, I have a PowerPoint presentation on all of that, the different levels and how to get recruited, how to write a letter, all of those things, and I offered a clinic. And I had 2 people show up, but that was the first year. So that could be something that I could absolutely revisit so that I could hold, it's just more specific, but I could certainly hold those. And that's just another fundraising or community service too, as well. But that's an excellent point, is they need to, yes.
Anything else, Coach Someone, Coach Ibarra and Lance, Coach Lansford? No? Dr. Tejeda? Wait,
Nothing left on my part.
okay, so, are you sure? Nothing else?
Nothing
We need
else.
to add?
Thank you for the opportunity for letting us present.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you so
Good
much.
work.
And thank you for presenting
Yes.
that presentation for number 3, which was to discuss the analysis of the relevant issues pertaining to some of the athletic programs and approve a proposal for the implementation of the Laredo College Athletics Program, including a possible reorganization. Dr. Tijerina, would that be an item that would be on the agenda for tomorrow, correct? Yes, and so it's gonna be presented as well?
It's up to the committee if you would like the coaches to present their implementation as well as the financial part. Because there might be 2 that may have missed
Right,
both
right, either
presentations.
ones.
But we can present both presentations for tomorrow.
Is
if the
the
committee-
committee in agreement with having that be a part of the presentation tomorrow?
Yeah.
Well, yes, okay, so we'll do that. Okay, so with that in mind, we've covered all of our items on this meeting's agenda. And so I call for an adjournment for number 7. So motion,
So.
any second? Oh, Dr. Carranza. And that adjourns our meeting, and it is 6:45. 6:45, and our meeting is adjourned. Thank you for attending,
Thank you.
and thank you for providing us with the information that was given. Thank you and have a good evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.